All right. Super excited to have our guest, Dr. Jeff Buske. Jeff Buske has been practicing dentistry for over 28 years and is known for his expertise as a comprehensive super GP. His clinical experience expands everything from pediatric growth and airway development to complex full mouth rehabilitation and full arch implant restorations. Over the course of his career, Jeff owned and operated two successful dental practices. One of those, co-owned with Dr. Bruce Baird, was sold to Heartland Dental in 2012. He went on to build a startup practice from the ground up, growing it into a seven-figure business before selling it in 2021, learning countless lessons along the way. Today, Jeff practices at the Heartland Dental office in Granbury, Texas, where his focus is exclusively on dental implants and full arch restorations, working Monday through Wednesday. He is also the founder of Limitless Dentist Academy, where he coaches high-performing men in dentistry. His mission is to help dentists to achieve peak performance and lasting well-being with the ultimate goal of having it all while living life on their own terms. Hello, everybody. My name is Elijah Desmond, your host of Closing the Deal. Super excited to have one of my good friends, Dr. Jeff Buske, here on this episode. How you doing, Jeff?
Fantastic, man. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to a great discussion today, brother.
Absolutely. Well, first off, let me go ahead and tell everybody, Jeff is one of my favorite humans. You know, somebody who has that energy that you want to be around them all the time. It glows off of them. I've never seen Jeff in a bad mood, but I'm sure that definitely happens because he's a person and human just like me. Super excited to head out to Dubai with Jeff with an amazing retreat put on by Dr. Jim Arnold, and get to know Jeff even on a deeper level, because retreats are really, they're small, they're intimate, they're closed with a small group of people. And, this will be a little bit different than whenever Jeff first made his big mark with me winning the entire event for Dentistry's Got Talent. Just after the pandemic, 50 other speakers, Jeff took the big belt home. And man, our friendship and journey has been great. You're literally changing lives, and you're still a dentist, and you're still practicing dentist. Not 5 days a week. I want to say 2-3 days, but I'm not going to tell your story for you, but you're able to affect so many lives in dentistry and outside of dentistry. And, I couldn't be more proud to call you my friend, and know that whenever I shoot you a text or pick up the phone, you're going to call right back, or you're going to text me right back. So Jeff, it's an honor to have you. For those who don't know you, I'm going to give you a chance to give your background. But before we do that, this entire season is about dentists who have sold their practice successfully or unsuccessfully. But at the end of the day, it's dentists who have sold their practice. And I know that, you didn't sell through us, Dental Pitch Brokerage. However, you did sell. But if you could do it over again and you could sell your practice over again, if there was a situation where you had a walk-on song and you had all these opportunities for buyers right in front of you. And by the way, that's not the only way we sell practices, but it's a fun way. It's different. You had this walk-on song that was just, it was a song that you're about to have your entire life's work sold, and you need to find a partner, and you come into that room, the door opens. What's the song that's playing and why?
Right now, the song that comes to mind is Calvin Harris, Faith. Actually, the reason why is, man, there is so much in life, and I'm sure we'll get into discussions today that, you think you might have the answers to, and you realize you don't. And really it does come down to having a lot of faith that, hey, this is all going to work out. And that, if you just have that opportunity to believe and you get your mindset right, your faith is such a big part of that, because it is such a strong belief in something that is true, or is that is going to happen, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet. So that'd be my walk-on song, brother.
Awesome. Good walk-on song. Now, for people that don't know you as good as I do, can you tell everybody about your background and, where you came from and kind of where you're at now, and an overview of you?
Yeah, I'll hit some of the highlights. Luckily, listen, I've been in dentistry now. I've been practicing dentistry for 28 years. And hence some of the more seasoned look with some of the gray hairs and everything. But the thing that I can say is that I honestly still love what I get to do. And I look at it like I get to. And so the minute that it becomes I have to, that's a whole different dynamic. When I was 17, I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up playing a lot of hockey, and I ended up fracturing my front tooth in half in a hockey game. And I remember that day I had to go on a date that night, a first date with a girl. And man, I remember feeling like just opening the door and the look on her face and just feeling the embarrassment. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I hope the dentist can, put my smile back, and hope my parents can afford it, and all the things that our patients go through. But when I saw like all the artistry that had to go into that, I was hooked. So I knew at 17, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. So I got into practice and started practicing. And my thought process was like, I want to be at the top. I want to be able to deliver elite care. So I poured just tons of money into CE. I mean, dude, I was taking over 100 hours all the time, like every year, just building and building and building, like learning how to do FMR, learn how to do implants, learn how to do braces, learn how to do facial growth and development. I mean, like I developed into a super GP. But here's the problem. I didn't realize, and I was an associate during that time, and I didn't realize that you also had to know how to advertise and how to market, and then how to manage and how to lead and how to like have business skills. And I had none of those. And so I was at a point where I got really pretty disheartened with dentistry. And man, like almost 7 years in, I was like, this is just not really what I wanted. And so I thought about leaving dentistry. And I remember it was back at the time when Dental Town was still actually a really good place to get some great information and everything. And I saw a post by Bruce Baird, and he was putting on there about what he was doing for productivity per hour. And I was like, man, there's just no way. He didn't know me from anybody. I private messaged him. I said, there's no fucking way you're doing what you're doing. It could be legal. He could have told me, go jump in the lake, I mean, but he was kind enough to let me back. He goes, no, we do this month after month. We've got systems and processes. And by the way, where do you practice? So we went back and forth. He's like, I'm going to be over there next weekend. We should get together and have a cocktail. So we did. And then that was, the born on product from that is he and I ended up partnering and practicing together for 17 years. And it was an amazing experience. The thing that I can say about Bruce is that he walked not only the walk, but he lived in integrity. So there was nothing that he told me that he was going to do that he didn't go do. And that's very rare in a partnership. And that's one of the things that I like to look for in human beings is, integrity is such an important aspect of how we operate. So, now I have the opportunity to still practice. I miss practicing with him because he was such a great partner to practice with. But I'm focused now on doing all implants. I love being in that lane. And as Elijah was saying, I now get to practice 3 days a week and earn more than I've ever earned by just doing that. And it opens up the opportunity for other things. So that's kind of in a nutshell, my short version of it. But just wanted to give everybody kind of an overview of where I started and where I ended up.
That's awesome. And I didn't even realize that you practiced with Bruce for 17. I mean, I love Bruce. I haven't talked to him in probably about 3 or 4 months, but I mean, I am one of Bruce Baird's biggest fans, and he's always been nothing but kind and respectful. And when I was doing really out of the box things in dentistry, some people lean away and others lean in. He leaned in. And so I love Bruce. I didn't know you were with him for 17 years. So can you give us a little bit of detail about that? So you started the practice with Bruce. You bought into the practice with Bruce? You partnered with him? How did that go before we give everybody the big reveal on when the sale happened? Can you get a little more details about that? 17 years.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, like Bruce had been through a number of associates. And, we started practicing together. I remember sitting there, we went to breakfast one morning and I just told him, I said, listen, I don't want to be just another associate. So if I'm here, what I want to look at is I want to be a partner. And he said, fantastic. So we were working with Kane Waters at that time, and we just set the path and looked at it. And it was really over the course of about a year to make sure that the productivity was where it could be so that I could then pay off anything loan wise. And it just made sense from that aspect. And by the time that I joined Bruce, I knew a lot and could perform and pull off a lot of really complex dentistry. So my skill set was well developed. But one of the big things that I had such a unique opportunity to learn from Bruce was the business side of it and the management side of it, and how to actually lead a team, how to create a vision. And man, I would put my ego aside. And I remember if I didn't have a patient, I would just sit outside his operatory door and just listen to him. I didn't even have to watch him. I was just listening to him just talk and communicate well with patients. Probably one of the best communicators that I've ever heard, being able to communicate so well with patients and just relate to them. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we're talking about dentistry, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a spouse, kids, friends, it all comes down to relationship. And that's probably one of the best things that I learned from Bruce was how to actually get into relationship and have a great relationship with our patients and create agreeable courses of action so that we can move forward. And so that was remarkable, having that opportunity to work hand in hand with him.
Got it. So you, during that 17 years, you bought into the practice with Bruce. And at what point, what made, I'm assuming both of you come together and say, it's time to sell?
Yes.
What was that? What was the biggest factor that made you guys realize it? And were you practicing equally 3 days each? Were you practicing more? Give us a little detail on that.
Yeah, I'll give you a little, at that time, then I was practicing 4 days a week. And then also too, we had built up the practice. So we each owned 50% of the practice, and we had built up the practice to such a high volume and such a big number that it had been well over 1.2 or 1.25 for just a person to come in and buy a third. And this is back in the beginning of like 2012. And so we're sitting there like, man, we were just sitting there thinking about, well, in order to bring in the right type of individuals, all the stars and moons need to line up. And like the team needs like them, the individual needs to be a good producer, a good communicator. And there was also so much variation with what was kind of happening with just some of the rules and regulations with what we would be having to provide for team. And we're just like, man, what are our options here? And so we started to look and just see what was out there. But the precipice was along the lines that the practice had gotten to such a high level. We just thought, man, this is going to be really difficult to sell a third of a practice. And so that's where that kind of started, was looking at that from that perspective. Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely. So you got to this point where you're like, okay, it's got really big. We want to take it to the next level. We want to bring the right person in. We're undecided, like how exactly who we're going to sell to or bring in. Can you tell us like the journey of how did you get the practice to maximum value to where it was even time to make any type of sale, whether it was a third or all? What were you guys doing to maximize that practice?
Well, one of the biggest things, Elijah, that we have always done and done from year one that I worked there is that we would sit down every single year. And this is something that I carry forward into the rest of my life, and that I teach any of the docs that I get to work with, not just in business, but the rest of our life. It's called reverse engineered production. And so one of the best ways that we could always look at maximizing everything is the end of the year, or close to the end of the year, we would do a production by procedure report, print that out for both of us and the entire practice. And then literally we would have these, like the big notepads that you can write on, like that you put on an easel. We would take those and we would write everything down. And on there, we would look at all of our procedures and like what we did, what was the most valuable, what did we want to continue to do procedure wise? Did we want to add any new procedures? And did we want to get any procedures off of our plate that we didn't no longer want to do? For example, neither one of us were super excited about endo. So we kind of just walked away from doing endo. And it was just like one of those things that we're like, listen, I'm not excited about it. It's not my lane. I don't love it. And, I can do it, but can I do it at the level that I really want to? And the answer is kind of like no, because I just didn't have my passion involved with that. So we decided on what are the best ways that we can be productive. And if you know Bruce teaches about productivity per hour. So we would take all of the production by procedure reports, we put everything together, and then he and I looked at what did the entire practice produce? And what did our hygienists produce? And so we looked at it by provider, hygiene producers. And then we looked at it by us. What did he produce? What did I produce? And then we broke it all the way down to, okay, what did we produce monthly? What did we produce weekly? And then it broke it all the way down to what did we produce hourly? And then at that time frame, what we also did is that we made a commitment. We made a commitment for the upcoming year. This is what I'm guaranteeing the office that I'm going to do and to produce. And I want you to hear me on that, because it wasn't like, hey, this is what I hope I'm going to produce. It was, this is what I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to do for the office. That's a very different mindset. And so when he and I both had that mindset, we looked at it from that perspective, we also then would plan out, this is this many weeks of vacation, typically take maybe between 4 and 6 weeks of vacation. Here's where I'm looking at putting them if we knew that time frame. But here's the unique thing. If I'm taking a week off, like when we're going to be going to Dubai in a few weeks, Elijah, my goal doesn't change. My hourly production has to rise. So my team needs to know that. And what do we start to do? Then we start to look at, hey, when I'm seeing these cases come in, I'm going to put a bigger case into that month, or I'm going to do this. So we prepared that way, because the worst thing that you can happen, and many of you docs out there, you probably have experienced, like, you'll kill it one day with production, and the next day you're like down here, and kill it, and then down here, and you ride this tidal wave, and it just is like, and this is one place that I like to be boring, where it's not just like here, but it's just kind of a nice, solid, gradual increase. And when we have that type of production that we can rely on, that we're, again, guaranteeing the practice, this is what I'm going to do. And if that meant that, like, hey, I might come in and work an extra day so I can pull it off, that was my commitment, but that was my mindset. And that was also his mindset. So we had this commitment that this is what we're going to create. And by the way, when we did that and we wrote it down and we committed to it, we would always be either slightly past that number or just right around that number, which is incredible. And so every year, no matter what, even during timeframes when the economic growth was not great, we still grew. And that's one of the ways that I think was so important, is that when you get that granular from just looking at, hey, this is what I want to produce next year, or not what I want to collect, to all the way down to, this is what I'm committed to doing, and here's what my hourly production has to be. And then months that you're going to be out of the office for a week, you're going to increase your hourly. Your team needs to know that, and they need to be responsible for that. We also break it down into our team members. Each of us, Bruce and I, both ran 3 chairs. We'd have 2 production chairs and 1 overflow or non-production chair. And all of our assistants worked together. Each of our assistants were responsible for the production in their chair. So they had to work as a team in tandem, knowing this is how we're going to schedule that day to reach goal and not have us running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And we based everything on production, and we blocked and allocated the time for productivity, not necessarily by time. Now, you have to know your time frames that fit in there, but we scheduled based on productivity, and we threw out the X's and slashes and all that stuff a long time ago, because when you run that way on that type of calendar and that type of system, the minute that somebody shows up late, you're fucked. Your whole morning's fucked. And the only way that you can get back on track is by the afternoon with lunch. When we schedule on productivity per hour and we base it on that, and that's how we run our schedule, now it allows for easiness in there, and actually allows us to go over goal, because many times we could fit so much extra stuff in because we already have it booked appropriately. Then we would see somebody in hygiene, and we're like, hey, Bill, you know what? I finished up with my stuff already. You've just got this something simple to do. You're already off. Would you like to stay? And we'd open the opportunity for people. And a lot of times they'd be like, yeah. And so we'd constantly be going over our goal. So that allowed us to maximize our valuation.
Got it. And so you maximize it. You probably didn't even peak yet. You're probably still growing, but you came to that point where you found the right partner, the right person to sell to. Can you tell us, who did you choose to sell to and why? and what have been the benefits of working with them and any challenges?
Absolutely. So this is unique. So you got to remember, this is back in 2012. And at that time, there was no venture capital buying practices. There was nothing. And so when we looked inside of the market, we looked at some of the big players inside of there, which were some of the DSOs. And at that time, Heartland had come in. And when we had our practice evaluated with them, they made the absolute best offer for our practice. And one of the reasons that we decided to go with them is we got paid handsomely well for not only our practice, but the big caveat that has well paid off is that both Bruce and myself also received, let's say, just a generous stock in the company for not just our practice, but for all of the Heartland stock. And so that was an incredible opportunity because that stock has just grown and grown and grown and grown. So those were the absolutely fantastic things there. Now, what are some of the drawbacks of working with something like that? Well, let me just back up here a second. One of the caveats is this too, is listen, we practice in a small town. Like our town that we practice in, Granbury, Texas, is 7,500 people, 7,700 people. That's a small town. Yet we draw people from Dallas, from Fort Worth, from Oklahoma, because we market for train wrecks and everything. And that's actually how I met Elijah, was through marketing and everything. And so we would always make sure that we would capitalize on our marketing, and it was always specific to what it is that we wanted to do. So high value procedures. It wasn't just generalized new patients. Hey, come in and we're going to see what happens. We're specifically marketing for train wrecks. And by doing that, it allowed us to attract the right individuals because we had the right message, and then we could actually perform the dentistry that was required. And so half of our new patients would come from marketing and half of our new patients would come from referral, because we would do an excellent job for them and they liked us and liked the way that they were treated. And again, we created relationships. And so inside of that, what I was going to say is that out of all of that, Heartland, the hard thing is that you do lose a little bit of your autonomy, meaning that, like, let's say you're at a continuing education event and you're like, oh, I want to buy that laser. I want to buy this. Well, you do have to run that up through the totem pole. And that's where you lose a little bit of that autonomy. But a couple of things that we did inside of our contract is that we had a guarantee that we were going to continue to market at our certain percentage. A lot of marketing now is maybe 2 to 3%, sometimes less. Depends on the way that you operate inside of your practice. And we always operated around 8 to sometimes 10% of collections that we would dump back into marketing. When you're producing 400,000 or 500,000 a month, you can dump a shit ton back into marketing. And that's how you can capitalize on it. And you start to insulate yourself. Other dentists in our community, listen, like I said, we're 7,700 people here. There's over 35 dentists. Last I even counted, that's probably more now. They're not my competition. They're not our competition. What is your competition is the new house, the new vehicle, the crazy vacation, all of those things. So when you can set yourself up as a category of one, it's not the other dentists that are your competition. It's yourself, it's your mindset, and the other things that people are wanting to put down their money to buy. And so with all of that, luckily we've had a great experience in our regards. You can hear sometimes nightmares of sometimes if a DSO would buy a practice where they'll come in and fire entire teams and just turn everything upside down. We insulated things inside of our contracts to provide provisions for everything. We lost zero team members. So we did not have any of our team members bail, nor did the organization fire any of our team members. We kept complete autonomy. So I think, Elijah, one of the things that is like Heartland, they kind of looked at our office as a little bit of a unicorn. They didn't quite know what to do with us. Heartland was very good at taking a Toyota Camry and turning it into a Corvette. What they weren't good at is taking a Ferrari like our office and turning it into a Bugatti. They just had no idea on what do we do. So the beautiful thing is we kind of had this agreement that, hey, as long as we're performing and doing our numbers and hitting our numbers, then just kind of leave us alone. And that's honestly, that is the way that it's been since 2012, which has been awesome.
That's amazing. And we have Dental Pitch Brokerage has sold practices to Heartland. I couldn't speak any higher of them. They do have look, all the DSOs have so many different models in general, as far as buying 100%, getting stock in the company, only selling 60% or 70% or 55% to the DSO. You get being able to invest back. There's so many different models. And I can tell you that the dentists that have went to Heartland are happy, and we have over 60 current buyers, big buyers, and Heartland is one of my favorite personally because of the culture, because of the support. Also, the name doesn't change to Heartland Dental. What's the name of your practice?
It's Granbury Dental Center. It's been remaining the same that it's always been since Bruce, before I was ever there. 37, 38 years, it's been Granbury Dental Center, and it has not changed.
Yeah, you brought up a good point as well, a good talking point. Anyways, you said the team didn't change. The team didn't change, and they didn't get fired. They didn't leave, and it just stayed the same. And I think that the team members, some of them could be, scared. And how was the emotions of your patients and your team when you decided to tell? And when did you tell your team? Was it a month before, as soon as it was signed, a week later? When was the team involved?
Looking back at it, we actually got the team involved at least, I want to say it was at least a couple months before. And here's the neat thing, Elijah, we've always been, as leaders, transparent with our team, meaning that every month when we sit down and go through our big monthly meeting, we go through all the numbers with the team. We don't hide anything from our team. The team knows exactly the numbers that the office produced. They know what it collected. They also look at knowing the overhead. So they don't just think that, oh, the doctor's pocketing all of this money. So, and they get a good idea of also why their bonus is what it is and everything from that aspect. And they realize it takes a lot to run a practice. So we've always been like that. And I think that's also just a key point in good and well-run and established leadership is that when you can be transparent, then you sit in the truth and you stand in the truth. And then also too, with them knowing the fact of just how we showed up and how we've been, they felt more comfortable than I think, a lot of teams might've felt with that. Sure, there was still some, issues of, okay, what's going to happen? But then they also got to see some of the other benefits that came on board, with some of the different coverage that was available and just some of the different things that as a practice owner that we might not have been able to provide. Okay.
Yeah. Is there any advice? If you give like one piece of advice to a dentist that's considering selling their practice, what would that one piece of advice be for you to give to them?
Man, if you're going to look at selling your practice, I think first and foremost is just like we talked about, what can you do in order to set yourself up, first of all, to set yourself apart, and also too, what can you do to find your lane that you really, or lanes that you really love, and really capitalize upon that. The reason being is when you're passionate about certain aspects of it and also tracking that, your productivity will go up no matter what. When you love what you do and you track it, that's a huge important aspect. That's I would say, out of everything, if you can start to make sure that you track everything, now you're making well-designed business decisions. Because what's the most dangerous thing to do in business? It's guess. When you guess, then that's one of the most dangerous things that you can do in business. When you go up and you ask Sally, hey, how's the new ad going? And they're like, oh, it's good. And they've had maybe a couple calls. Meanwhile, you are losing your ass on it when you look at the return on it. Sally doesn't know about the marketing and the dollars that are put into there. I need to know on a weekly basis what things are happening so that I can make the correct decisions, so that I can course correct like that. when you know your numbers. So at the end of the day, knowing your numbers and tracking would be the most important things that you can do so that you can now lead your practice effectively.
Now, I noticed, something that you said there, very important, came early on. It was, I'm working a few days a week. Number one. Okay. Second thing that I noticed that was super important is that you basically, you said that you sold in 2012.
Yeah.
Well, it is 2025. The biggest mistake that I personally see dentists make is saying, I'm retiring by, meaning I'm selling my practice in 6 months and I am leaving. And they don't understand the life that is still out there, that is still available. Practicing, you went from 4 to 3 days a week, and you sold 12 years ago. You're happy. You're a killer producer, and you're doing other things now in your life, and you're working 3 days a week, and you're going to amazing places all around the world like Dubai, right? And people need to understand, do not wait till it's too late to sell. Don't wait until you get in a bad situation and you get hit by a car and you weren't even able to take chips off the table. Don't wait until you're miserable and you're burnt out. Stop. Don't wait. You can sell and find the right partner and still live an entire life of dentistry and something else. And so, can you tell us, like, it is just, kind of ending the podcast. I want you to tell our guests some things that you're doing right now, some things that you are able to do, that now that you've sold the practice, you can practice dentistry and not worry about the business aspect. And you have this amazing life. You're changing so many lives. Can you let everybody know what you're doing with these new opportunities that came from selling?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things to wrap your head around is also get clear on two very important aspects for yourself. One is figure out really truly what your soul's purpose is. And and people are like, "Oh yeah, I know what my purpose is." But when you sit down and ask yourself that and you take a real deep introspective look, it's a lot more complex. Now, I realize that I've got a very simplistic answer to that. And for me, it's about looking at creating transformation in people's lives. So whether that be through my dentistry or through my coaching and consulting, anything like that, I am committed to transforming lives and doing that in a way in which excites me and that allows me to overflow. So allowing us to have a clear purpose, that also then aligns with the second point, which is also to create a clear vision of what it is that you desire, that you want to see come into fruition. And again, coming back to having faith in that. So what it's allowed me to do is develop a vision, and a vision can be very different than practicing dentistry. And so for me, what I've always enjoyed is, how do I create that transformation? Whether that was through cosmetic dentistry or still is through implant dentistry and delivering a full arch of implant or double arch, and then watching how those individuals come alive and watching their personality just totally change. It's unbelievable. And it's amazing what we can do. And I think that's also one of the reasons that I still love what I get to do, because when you get to have that type of opportunity to have an impact in somebody's life, to me, that fills up my my emotional paycheck as well as any monetary paycheck. So what it's also allowed me to do is realize that, man, I love to teach. I love to train. I love when docs are in the office, and it's just kind of what part of my element is. And out of some dark times in 2016, was not easy. I had some difficulties going on inside of life with marriage and how to run and operate things. And I didn't even mention I had built a second practice from scratch, and that was very difficult because it was 52 miles away. And for me, it was one of those things that was taking up a lot of time, and I didn't really know or have the tools to manage stress and everything else. So I went down a very dark pathway, which was I was drinking every night to numb the pain or numb out just to feel some of the relief. And I didn't have any tools to operate with. And inside of dentistry, inside of a lot of professions, is there's a significant amount of sedation, there's a significant amount of depression, divorce, and still high rates of suicide. And those rates all continue to climb. And so 2016 was a wake-up call for me when my wife said, after a couple bottles of wine one night, when she said, Jeff, I didn't sign up for this shit. I was like, oh shit, I need to make some big time pivots. And I did. So I hired coaches and hired mentors, and I went to work. I went to work on me. And I realized I was able to turn around things in my life significantly. And I thought, man, if I can do this for me, I'm not the most intelligent guy in the world, but if I can do this for me, I know that it's possible for other people, especially inside of our profession. So that started leading me down a road to looking at how can I support other docs inside of our profession to have some of the same turnaround that I can. It doesn't mean that the wheels have to be completely off the bus in order to look at this. It can be looking at individuals who are high performers that are just kind of stuck and like, how do I get to the next level? Or that are producing so massively well, but they're fucking empty inside. They're like, their soul is just dying. And that's what we get to experience is like, how do we take that? And I'm coming back to like, what is your soul's purpose? So what it's allowed me to do is to create coaching and consulting really kind of on a lifestyle basis that allows us to have an incredible life with mental well-being at the foundation and allowing 4 areas of our life to rise simultaneously. The model of let me build the practice and put the rest of my life on hold is fucking broken. And it's a bullshit model, and it's a bullshit lie that many of us were sold and have bought into. The reality is that you can actually build it all and have it all at the same time, meaning that your body can be fit and weaponized, meaning that your relationships can be on point and on fire with your spouse, and you can be present with your kids, meaning that you can be spiritually connected, whatever that means for you. With me, that's God, and that your practice can thrive. And so we look at body, being, our spirituality, balance, our relationships, and our business, and allowing all of those to work synergistically and in harmony all the way through our journey. And when you can do that, life is fulfilling. When I look at life and say, okay, what do I consider success that's defined differently for everyone? For me, success is creating a life that I love waking up to. That's why we're sitting here on a Thursday morning, not at the practice, and we're having an amazing discussion with my good buddy Elijah. And that's what I love, is having these types of opportunities. So I wanted to look at creating that for others inside of our profession and beyond.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell people if they, I mean, you just got me so excited for Dubai, by the way. I usually don't sit through a bunch of courses, but every once in a while I'm going to be sitting through the entire workshop with you in Dubai. I'm so excited to get there. And spend some time with you. You and I we've spent time with each other, but we haven't spent 5-6 days in a small group together. So we're going to have a great experience. And thank you for sharing your vulnerable story. And thank you for changing so many lives. For people that want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to reach you?
I'll tell you 2 things. You can email me easily at drjbuske@gmail.com, or find me on Instagram, dr.jeffbuske. That's it. It's super easy to find me. I'm on there every day, and so you'll find me there as well. Just message me.
Awesome. That's awesome. And it's funny. I ask, where do you find people every episode? But when people hear you, and when people hear your passion, when people feel your vibration and your energy, they don't even have to be given an email. They will find you. And I tell you, you go through life, and you ultimately, a lot of people are always like trying to find their tribe and find where they belong and find their purpose. And my biggest thing is that you are your authentic self. Your people are going to find you, period. You don't have to be fake. If you're fake, guess what happens? You get the wrong friends. You get the wrong people. You attract a fake tribe. And when you're real, your people will find you. And I just think it's awesome. You are my tribe. And I believe I am your tribe. And that's why we have such a connection. There's other people that are going to be on here listening. They're going to be like, I got goosebumps right now. Like, man, I got to find this Jeff. Got to find this Jeff Buske. So listen, brother, I appreciate you. I thank you. I honor you. And I will see you soon.
Man, thanks for having me on. It's such an honor to be here and to share the time with you, Elijah. You're such a good guy. I've always appreciated having the opportunity, and right back at you, man. Like, everything, again, you operate in integrity. And so things that you say that you do, you pull off, you do it. And those are the types of people that I want to surround myself with. The power of community is incredible. And what you'll notice is the more clear that you get on your vision and the more focused you get on it, and you get rid of the shiny shit syndrome distractions, you will notice that your community gets smaller, your group gets smaller, but it gets tighter. And it gets more well-defined, and you're going to accelerate faster in your life because you're around people that are doing and that are up to big things. And that's what I want for you. I want you to win. So thank you, Elijah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of Closing the Deal.
Take care.